if you're overtrading, the problem isn't to do with your discipline, it's a mindset problem. Welcome to the Trader's Muse. I'm Naomi. I'm a cognitive behavioural therapist by background and someone who trades. And in this video, I'm going to give you 3 simple psychological steps that you can take to break out of this cycle of overtrading. So overtrading is a behaviour. It is something that we do. So it might look like forcing entries, taking setups that aren't in your plan, or it might be that thought you notice when you say to yourself, oh, just one more trade. Overtrading can even stem from boredom, from just watching the charts for a while and not being in a trade, or fear, or even ego. So overtrading is an action, it's a behavior, but it stems from the thoughts and emotions that are going on internally. So step 1 is to identify the trigger loop. So for example, there could be a trigger in the market, and a trigger is what happens in the lead up to you overtrading. So for example, a trigger could be you seeing price suddenly spike. And then that leads to the thought, I'm going to miss this move if I don't get in now. And then that thought leads to a sense of urgency, fear of missing out, anxiety, okay? And then those thoughts and feelings then lead to you forcing a trade or taking a setup outside of your trading plan. Okay, so it's really important, if you want to stop overtrading, the first step is to understand what your triggers are. So what has to happen in your environment or the trading environment to actually lead to this behavior? That way, if you notice the trigger, you can then identify what was going through your mind in that moment, how you might have been feeling, and then of course how those thoughts and feelings led to overtrading. So that's the first step. And if you want to be able to do this for yourself, feel free to take a look at my trading psychology course linked below. I do have a trigger journal in there which you can use to help you to identify your own personal triggers in the market that are unique to you, as well as how you are viewing them. So what thoughts go through your mind when that happens? How do you feel and what do you do? Okay, so all of that is going to be a unique experience for yourself. So feel free to have a look at my course, which includes that tool in there. So step 2 is to interrupt the emotional urgency. So the reason you overtrade is because of the feeling caused by those thoughts that you had in response to your trigger. So if you think that you need to enter a trade because you're going to miss something, there's a level of distress there. And so then overtrading is your best attempt at that time to neutralize those feelings. So what you want to do is, first of all, interrupt that emotional urgency. And the first way that you interrupt that feeling is by pausing. Pause before you press that buy or sell button. Pause and take 3 deep breaths. And this is almost like an emotional circuit breaker. It breaks into that feeling. It breaks into that fight or flight response, allowing you to think and make decisions from a calm place, as opposed to your fight or flight response being activated. Thinking that you're going to miss something or lose out on money is triggering your nervous system, and you're perceiving that as some kind of threat. So taking a few deep breaths helps to calm down that nervous system and helps you to think more logically, as opposed to having irrational thoughts. And then the next thing you want to do as part of breaking into that emotional urgency is to label the emotion. So literally call it out and say, this is fear of missing out. This is impulse. The intensity of that feeling now reduces when you're able to call it out. By calling it out and naming that feeling gives you distance between you and that feeling, which means you now have space to decide how you want to act. And the final part to interrupting this emotional urgency is to move away from emotion and towards evidence. So you can simply now ask yourself, is this my setup? Do I have a reason to enter here, or is this an urge? And step 3 is the final step in breaking out of this cycle of overtrading. And that is to replace the behavior of overtrading with another behavior. Just like if you was trying to drop any behavior in any other area of your life, you'd have to replace it with an alternative behavior. So in trading, one thing you could do is have a one setup only commitment, for example. So this is where you say to yourself, I'm only going to trade one setup. And then by doing this, it limits your options, which limits your urges to overtrade. So you've replaced the behavior of overtrading with the behavior of having a one setup only commitment, for example. Another thing you could do is replace overtrading with a timer after every trade that you close. So once you close a trade, you might say to yourself, I'm going to wait 5 to 10 minutes before scanning the market for another opportunity. So in this way, you're literally replacing overtrading with another behavior of physically going away, setting a timer for 5 to 10 minutes to do something else. Again, this reduces the likelihood of you wanting to take another trade after potentially having a winning trade or a losing trade. Another behavior that could be used to replace overtrading is having like a neutral reset phrase that you can say to yourself. So for example, it might be something like, my job is not to chase every move, it's just to execute my setup. And again, that grounds you back into your process of following your plan and not chasing every move. Another behavior that can be used to replace overtrading is after every trade, journaling why you entered that trade. And what that does is it forces you to be a trader who only trades their setups. So if you can't identify why you entered that trade, then that means you were trading off urge and not your plan. So again, these are just a few examples of behaviors that you can use to replace the behavior of overtrading. When you remove any habitual behavior from your life, it's going to be hard, so it has to have a replacement. So in summary, the 3 psychological steps to stop overtrading are: number 1, identify your own trigger, thought, emotion loops. Number 2 is to interrupt that emotional urgency. And number 3 is to replace the behavior of overtrading with another pre-planned behavior. I hope you found this video helpful. Let me know in the comments what you're going to practice to try to intervene and break this vicious cycle of overtrading. If you want to dive deeper into managing your own trading psychology and changing your trading behavior so that you can get to consistency, then take a look at my trading psychology course linked below, which you may also find helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.